Hello, it's Eric Holsizer. I'm the lab supervisor for the radio, television, film program. Today we're going to talk about editing. I have used a lot of different editing systems, probably 20 at this point. I know how to translate what I know from one to another, so please dig in and learn one system. It doesn't matter because they all basically work the same. There are basic steps that they all use. They are managing the media. When we're managing media, we want to make sure we know where the footage that we shot is, and we want to review it, especially in the case of mobile editing. We want to set up a project. This can happen in many different ways, but once we set up a project, that's how we can access it if we need to come back to it later and continue to work or make changes. So it is the record of all the work we've done. Once we've got the project set up, we want to import whatever media we're working with, whether that's video, graphics, music, audio, still pictures, whatever it might be. If we can import it in and the editing system can work with it, that's what we want. Then we want to edit or manipulate the clips to make them do what we want. Once that's all done, very important, we want to review the work. Does it look smooth? Is it clean? Are the audio levels consistent? Or do I have to turn it up and down? If it's not clean, if there's jumpy, jittery frames and just things flying all over, we don't want that. We have to clean that up. If I have to turn up the volume or turn down the volume, I need to fix that before we take our final step, which is exporting the work. When we're working in an editing system, we can't see the work unless we have the editing system. When we export, we make a movie file that can be put on YouTube. It can be sent to your professor. It can be put on Dropbox. You can put it on Facebook. You can do just about anything you want with it. So, we're going to be looking at Premiere Pro, the 2020 Creative Cloud version. If you have another version, that's okay. Most of what I'm going to show you translates. There may be a few tweaks. You can query me later, email me later. I might be able to help you over a difference in the versions. But to start with, we're not even going to open Premiere. What we're going to do is the first thing we talked about, which is manage the media. Now I'm going to assume that you're going to follow me in making a little PSA here about the Ybor campus of HCC, and you have downloaded the footage. So in my download folder, I have the footage you're going to need. We're going to look at this later. It's video, it's audio, it's music, there's a graphic, everything we need to make a little PSA on HCC Ybor. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and manage that media, and some of you may be taking video in from a phone, you may be taking video in from a camera. What you need to realize is you must make a master folder, a main folder, to keep everything in for this project. So what we're going to do is we're going to open our drive. Now, I'm hoping that your professors have talked to you about hard drives. You really need to have an external hard drive. It's not good to use the computer desktop. You can, it's just not good. Practice. You cannot use a cloud to edit video. It won't move back and forth fast enough. But wherever you put your video, you must know where it is, because the edit system, all edit systems, simply point back to it. So I'm going to make a master folder on my white drive here. To do that on this Mac, I'm going to click on this little sprocket up here, new folder. Let's call this Premiere Training. We'll put summer 2020. You call it whatever makes sense for you, but that is your master folder. Everything you're going to do for this project goes in there. So instead of leaving this, for instance, in my download folder, I'm going to drag and drop this into the folder I just created. It's going to transfer quickly because I've really lowered the res here to move this stuff around on the internet. So when you download larger res photos or video rather, you're not going to get this many clips transferring that fast. This is very low res for the purposes of moving it around on the internet. So be patient, it may take a bit, but the point is make sure everything gets in one folder. Everything in one folder. If I have things to add to this folder, I may make another folder, for instance, and call it music and put music in there. I happen to have everything I need in one folder here. That's not usually the case. You may want to be a little more organized, but the very minimal is have at least one master folder with other folders inside. Okay? So that's what we want to do to manage our media. So let's talk about starting our Premiere Pro project. What we're going to want to do is launch Premiere, which in the case of the Mac is here in the dock. Notice I've got my master file open here because we're going to put this project in the master file, just like we did the video here. So it opens. We want to click on New Project. This is important. We don't want untitled projects. We want to go ahead and title it. We're going to call this Edit Training Summer 2020. Now, something about all Adobe programs that's a little bit, you have to pay a little bit of attention to, and that's this line here, location. And in other places you may just have to click. But this is important because you need to know where things go. While we named it, it's going to default go into the computer. That's where this is going. We don't want that. So we're going to browse, and we're going to put it in that master folder we created. So that would be right here, Premiere Training. This is our master file, Summer 2020, Premiere Training, Summer 2020. We're going to click Choose. And the rest of this we're not going to worry about. It's all good. We're going to hit OK. Notice when we do, I'm going to minimize Premiere here. It opened it for us. Right away we get this icon. From here on out, when I want to open this project, I'm going to just click on that. Before we go further, let's take a look at the interface here in Premiere Pro. We're going to start down here in the left in what's called the Project panel. Now that panel is going to contain our media. Notice here it says import to media. We're going to be doing that in a minute. There are some other things that it contains which can be manipulated. You can move these around. You can add other ones, but your main project window will be right here. There will be bins within it, different ways of looking at the bins, the views of them. We won't be going into that too much. We will be using this button down here, this one right here, to create a sequence. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Up here is our source monitor. If we call up a clip from the project monitor, we can manipulate it here. We can actually do some of the editing here. We'll be doing some of that. Down below on the right is our timeline where we will see sequences. We don't have a sequence yet, so we don't see that there. But this is where we will do a good portion of our editing, and what we edit we will see up here in the program panel. So before we go any further, I want to show you what the finished version of the video that we're hoping to complete here in this training looks like. So, transitioning from a completely empty slate in Premiere to a completely full one, here's what we're looking at. What we want to create normally would be done with a script. A huge part of editing is done with a written script. But sometimes you just put things together as you go. That's going to depend on whatever project you're working on. What we want to create right now is what we're looking at right here. And let's take a little look here.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory. Here in Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen HCC-wide.
This was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
So something along those lines. It doesn't have to be exactly the same shots in the same order. We're just doing this for practice. But I want to talk to you about what you see here in the sequence editor. You see that we've kind of blown up our tracks here. We'll talk about all of this. On the top, we have what's called the B-roll, and that'll be over here. We've labeled it A-roll and B-roll so you can clearly see how this is going to work. On the video 1 level, we have the A-roll, the interviews. So we're keeping everything nice and neat. Down here we have our audio. We have our music here, a little bit of a B sound effect that we needed here. The audio that goes with these sound bites is here somewhere. There it is. All stacked on different levels. Something easy to do in Premiere is to keep things nice and neat. Just want to show you a few quick things about how to navigate in this pane, or any pane when it comes to making it all larger. If I wanted to look at this video full, I would click on that pane and hit the Tyndall key, which is just above the tab, the Tyndall key. It makes that full. Then I can play it from here or using the space bar. Tyndall key again, it goes back. If I look at this one, I can look at it full, like that. Goes back. If I want to zoom in on a particular area, wherever I click here on the playhead, down below, there's a nice little slider. If I go this way, it zooms out. If I go this way, it zooms in. If I want to see the whole thing, if I'm quite zoomed in, my entire project, I simply hit the slash key, the / key, just under delete on my keyboard. And I see the whole project. So those are just a few of the ways that you can both navigate and zoom in and out. Notice over here, I have all of our material. We're going to talk next about how to import this material. But this is our goal here, to get a nice little PSA with our A-roll on one level, our B-roll on another, and our audio stacked up in a nice, easy to manage way. Back here now to our blank project. I just want to minimize this for a second and show you we're about to import footage, and I want to just review the managing media portion of this by pointing out that this is the folder that we transferred from the download folder. It's got everything we need to complete this little edit. If you'll notice, this is our icon for the project that we're working on in Premiere, and when we started to save, it built an auto save, which is nice if you ever get in trouble, lose your project, something happens and your system crashes. It does auto save every so often, and so you could open that version if you had to in an emergency. So that's our folder, our master folder that we created, Premiere Training Summer 2020. It's got our footage. We're going to come in and we could pick one or two things out at a time if we wanted to, but we're going to come in and we're going to bring this whole file in, and you'll see why that's going to be nice as far as organization. So let's go back to Premiere. Now I want to point out that there's 5 ways to do everything. So what I want to do is import. Most things are up here in the menu. I can find import, but I can use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control-I. But the easiest way to import, it says right here, import. If I just double click in there, it's going to let me import. It opened up to all that footage. I don't necessarily want to go to all that footage. I want to find that whole folder and I want to just highlight the folder and bring it all in and just say import. When I do, you'll see that it created its own bin. And I can go down here and I can see it in list view if you prefer. There's everything. It came in. Let's work from the icon view. If I double click on that, I'll see the footage that I need to work with. I'll see the music, the graphic we're going to work with. Everything that I just showed you in that finished piece is all in here, and then maybe a little more too. So when you're working with this, feel free to use anything to put anything in whatever order you want. To start with, we're going to set up a sequence. Now there are technical things we need to consider. All video has at least two properties to it. It's got a frame rate and a resolution. If I click on this clip, I go to info, I see some information about it. It's a movie file. I see the file format, MPEG. I see the frame rate here, 29.976, which is generally going to be referred to as 24 frames a second. I also see the resolution. Remember I told you this was compressed down to be very small so that it can be transported over the internet easily. So this is not the normal thing that you would see when you're working, say from your phone. You might see 1080, you might see 1920 by 1080. This is the resolution that this particular clip is set up on, which is important. And if you have a variety of different clips, you might want to check what each one was. This was done with a different camera, so if I check it, now they've all been compressed to the same thing. But when it started, it was slightly different. And the sequence can handle that. But what we want to think about is the format, the resolution, frame rate, to some extent even the format, may have to be what's called rendered if I place it over here on the timeline, because timelines have their own settings. They have their own one resolution setting and one frame rate setting. Whatever I set that to, anything that I put down on the timeline that isn't that is going to have to be adjusted, usually referred to as rendering. There may be some other adjustments that would have to be made. So because of that, we're going to take whatever is the majority of our footage. In this case, all of this footage has been compressed to the same thing. And I'm just going to go ahead and decide, since it's all the same, I'm going to decide now what my first B-roll shot or video is going to be, and that's going to be the drone shot. So let's find that. It's got a little flash of black on the beginning of it. Let's double click, it's going to come up here. Let's just put this whole shot down, except let's edit off, and we'll go back over this in a minute, how to set ins and outs and do some editing up here, but I'm going to just move it in a little bit with my playhead right here and hit I for in. We'll go ahead and just come through it, and we're probably going to need about that much. I'm going to hit O for out. We're going to go over that in a minute again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to grab that drone shot. I'm going to drag it and drop it right on this, the new item icon. That's going to set up a sequence when I let go of it with the frame rate and resolution that I want, that is the majority of my footage. As soon as I do that, there it is. There's my shot, starting with my in and ending with my out. And we'll talk about more over here in a minute, but that at least gets our technical parameters for our sequence. So this is the sequence with this icon right here. It will take the clip's name when I drag it and drop it. There are other ways to start a sequence. That's the best way to set it up technically for the majority of your footage. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the name of this sequence right now, and we can call this the same thing we've been calling the project. Which is edit training. Summer 2020. We can always change it later. That way it's not just named the same as one of the clips. Now I've got a sequence that I can work in. So we're going to go ahead and start our A-roll now, which is going to involve bringing in our music. That's the first audio. We want to edit all of our audio down here in our timeline, and then we're going to put our video, our B-roll, on top of it. So I'm going to find my music right here, Music River Flow. I'm going to double click, and I've got set in here what's called ins and outs. I just went ahead and I started at the beginning. I went down about 40 seconds. I can even go a little shorter because I can always drag it out. Go about 20 seconds. I'm going to hit O for out. Now only this portion, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, only this portion is going to come down onto the timeline. That's what we want. So we've got that ready. We want to go down to our timeline, and we want to make sure we have our playhead where we want it, because that's where it's going to drop. We don't want to move it around. It's a waste of time. So I'm going to put it right at the beginning because that's where we want our music. Now I want my music to be on this audio 3 level. So I'm going to change what's called the targeting here. I'm going to click down there. That's where it's going to drop. There's no video, so that won't matter. Instead of dragging it down there, please don't do that. That's a sloppy way to do it. Once in a while, you need to drag, but mostly you will need either this insert. We're not going to use that right now. That just pushes everything to the right. It'll even break a clip. What you want is overwrite, and notice the period. That's the shortcut. So if I hit period, it comes down there. It goes all the way to the end. If I come back to the beginning, now, we want to be concerned with the levels on this. You don't want a viewer to have to turn up and down levels. It's your job as the editor to keep them consistent. So you need to pick a peak point, a mix 2 it's called. This happens to be at a pretty good one. If I look at my meters here, it's peaking, the little lines that are left at the peak, around -6. That's good. You could bring it up to 0 by using this rubber band here. We're going to work with that. Now it's peaking around 0. I don't really want that. I'm going to undo. But you can see that I can use the rubber band there to move the level on the whole clip. I'm going to make this just a little smaller. So I've got that audio in there, and next we're going to drop in our first soundbite. Okay, so we're going to come over here about 7 seconds, which is where roughly we want to drop this first soundbite in. We'll be able to move things around, but we want them to pretty much come down where we want. So let us go and find our first soundbite over here. So this is the first one we want. A-roll Living Lab. If I double click, it comes up here. And we're going to talk a little more about editing up here. Let's play it.
Campus, okay, gotcha. HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
That's what we want right there. We don't bring the whole clip down here and go get this razor and cut the left and delete and cut the right and delete. That's just very amateur. Professionals do their editing up here.
Gotcha.
He's about to say it. I can move my clip 1 frame at a time by using my left and right arrows on my keyboard. I can see he's about to say it, so I'm going to set an in point. This is how we edit. Set an in point. Can you guess the shortcut? I, of course. And see how it immediately grays out to the end because we haven't set an out point.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
O, of course, for out. Now we see the byte we want grayed out. I can go over here and I can tell it to play into out just to check what I've selected.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
So that's the soundbite we want. Now we want to look at our targeting here. We want our A-roll video to be on video 1. That's good. But we want, if we left this here, it would overwrite the music. That's not what we want. So we want our target to be up here on audio 1. Now we hit period. And there it is.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
Okay, so we have several problems. If I mute this audio, so I can just hear him, mute track right there. I play him.
HCC Ybor campus is like...
I can see that he's peaking around minus 18, which is not going to really, that's not what we want things to peak at. So I'm going to grab this rubber band again. I'm going to move it up pretty good. The numbers there represent how far up or down you're moving it, not necessarily what it's going to play back at.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
Maybe a little bit higher.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
That'll work. Then I'm going to unmute this, and we'll see our second problem with the audio here.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
Okay, this music is just some nice guitar, so it's a little hard to tell, but it's a little loud, just where he's talking. We set the levels where the music is going to be the primary audio, but when we get to him, we need to bring it down. So we're going to use something called keyframes. And that is something that tells the computer to make a change from one value to another. What we're not going to do is something very amateur that I'm hoping you won't do anymore, which is to just take that razor again. Notice how I keep saying the razor. Don't use the razor. It can be used for things, but not very much. It's way overused, and it makes very rough edits. So we're going to come a little bit beforehand, and we're going to tell it to start to make a change. And we're going to do that with a keyframe. So if I hold down the command button or the control button on a PC, and as I float over the rubber band on the music, you see the little plus sign. That means I can put a keyframe. So if I click, I get that little diamond. I'm going to do that again right when he starts talking. Then I'm going to come over to when he's done. I'm going to put one right when he's done and one more a little bit after. Then I'm going to go in between. I'm going to grab the rubber band. I'm going to bring it down. We just built what's called a ramp. Let's listen.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
So this is something you have to do with your ear, but you can change this. To me, that changed too fast. It came down too fast. So I'm going to spread it out. The longer the distance between these two, the longer it's going to take, and vice versa. I'm going to make sure this upper one comes back to around minus 6. Right about there. Let's have a listen.
HCC Ybor campus.
I'm going to bring the music up a little bit.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
I'm bringing it up a little bit more. This you have to do by ear.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
Too much there.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
That's good. Depending on the music, some is very loud, you have to keep it low. But that's how you make changes over time. We can do that with video too, and we can look at that in a more advanced lesson. You'll find that you'll find that keyframes show up in another area up here. But with audio, it's so common that it's built right into the timeline, built right into this clip that you can put these keyframes and build yourself a ramp. So we did that.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
Now notice as far as my edits, I can move them. If I wanted to, I could do what's called trim. I could drag it out and have more of it. I'm not going to do that. We're going to undo. Same on this side. So I can I can do whatever I need. When I'm editing up here, I'm not making it permanent down here. Hope you understand that point.
Living laboratory.
So we'll drop in our second soundbite. And I'm going to put my playhead where I need it to go first. So I think we had about 4 or 5 seconds in between there. So I'm at about 10 right here on my timer. If I go over to about 15, we'll put our next bite in, right in that area there. I'll listen to the music, see if there's a good spot to drop it. Right about there is probably good. So we're going to use our second sound bite with the gentleman here, Fred. So we double click on him here. He comes up here. We're going to set our ins and outs. Let's listen.
I had the experience to travel multiple Hillsborough Community Colleges campuses, but I must say that here in Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen, HCC-wide. Colleges, campuses.
I believe we just used this middle part.
Multiple Hillsborough Community Colleges campuses.
In.
But I must say that
here
in Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen.
Out. I don't know if I have that right. Let's play the
here in Ybor City.
A little bit tight there. So here's the trick. If I hold down Shift and hit I, it takes me to my in point. Then I can use my left arrow, go back a couple of frames just to give him a breath before he talks. Set my in. Now if I play in out.
Here in Ybor City,
that sounds a little better. So we're going to check our targets. They're still where we want them. Video 1 and audio 1. We're going to hit our period key. And we're going to drop it down.
Here in Ybor City.
We're going to go ahead and stretch out our music here. Notice it's run out. We just kind of grabbed a random amount so we can at least bring it past our second soundbite. We'll stretch it out further. We'll go ahead and we'll do our keyframing again before he starts talking. We'll hold down Command or Control on a PC. Click, 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 click. We'll look over here to the other one and set it about the same. Take a listen.
Here in Ybor City, we have one of the...
We got to bring his audio up. We can look over to the other one.
Here in Ybor City, we have one of the...
Might bring it down a little bit.
Here in Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen. In Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen.
There we go. So we're building up our A-roll. Put our third bite in here. So we're going to bring our playhead down about 2 seconds. We're at about 22 here. So we'll go over to about 24 here. Maybe listen for a spot in the music to drop it in. Kind of anywhere in there, somewhere right in there. That's where we're going to drop this young lady. So I preloaded her up here by double clicking on her right here. Let's listen to this. I meant like just public speaking. This kind of thing helps you.
So public speaking, a lot. Yes. So I am here to kind of like get a better grade in one speech I did. So this was a challenge that my teacher. I
believe we're going to start with, so this was a challenge. So I'm grabbing the playhead here and moving it around. There's a number of ways to move things around.
Like get a better grade in one speech I did.
She's about to say it. So I for in.
So this was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
That's my out cue. So O for out. Then I'm going to bring it down by overwriting. Just right there, the period. Hit the period key. My targets have been set from my last bite. So it's all good. But now there are some issues with this soundbite. Let's listen to it.
So this was a challenge that my teacher made me do.
She's saying a lot, and were two microphones used when this was recorded. It's pretty common. We do it a lot. We recorded this soundbite for a story we were doing with some students. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that audio for that clip and bring it to just the one mic. To do that, I'm going to right click, which is Command or Control. Control if you're Mac, Command if you're PC, and then click, or just a right click depending on your mouse. And what I want to do there, and you'll find a lot of good tools in your right click on clips. That's your buddy, right clicking. I want audio channels. When I click that, this shows me what came in and how it was recorded. This is the shotgun mic on the camera. And this is I believe this young lady's wearing a lavalier mic, and that's what we want. We only want to hear that. So I'm going to put that one, the left channel in my source, on both the left and right on my timeline. And that's going to get rid of that shotgun mic that we don't really want to hear for this. Okay? Now let's go ahead and let's mute our music so that it'll be there, but we won't hear it while we're working.
So this was a challenge.
So that sounds a lot better without that other mic on, which is a bit hollow. But let's go ahead and bring up the audio level using the rubber band so that she's peaking around -6.
So this was a challenge that my teacher
Maybe a little more.
made me do, and I am very grateful.
Okay, and then we're going to deal with the second issue, which is she says a lot. Now that would be okay, but I know that in our finished product, we might have some B-roll coming up to about here. Then we might see her face to see who's talking. Then we're going to B-roll all of this. We're going to put video over the top of it. So anywhere in here where she's saying, we can go ahead and we can cut that out now, and I'll show you how. We're going to use ins and outs down here on the timeline. And then we're going to cut those away. But we don't want to cut is the music. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our little tools over here, and we're going to lock this third track here. See this lock button? When I click on that, it puts these gray stripes on it, meaning I can make edits to this, and nothing will happen to this. That's what we want. So now let's listen to her.
So this was a.
I've tried to cut that first out. It's too hard.
So this was a challenge.
That one's good. We can get that one out of there. You can see it here. If you've made your track big enough, I can see the It's right there. I'm going to put an in right here on the timeline. Notice how it's similar to up here. It marks it out. I'm going to put it out. I might go another frame over. I'm going to use my left-right arrows, going frame by frame. I'm going to change my out just to there. And then what I want to do is called extract, and that's up here. Lift will cut it out of there, but it will leave the gap in it. You might want that, but what we want is to close the gap and lift it out all at once, which is lift or the apostrophe key. So we hit the apostrophe key, it cut it out and brought them together.
That my teacher.
So I can cut out all those. Again, I know I'm going to B-roll her, put video on top of her, so her head moving around isn't going to matter. In. Left arrow to move back.
Made me do.
I might go just a little more on that one.
made me do,
apostrophe key,
made me do, made me do, and I.
One more.
And,
You can just hear the end of her saying then I hit my out, my apostrophe key, or my extract button up here. It extracts it and closes the gap.
and I am very grateful because this really.
Now we got one more. I lied.
Because, this really helped me.
Now let's take a listen. Notice I did not cut or extract anything from my music because it was locked.
So this was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
So we got most of those ums out of there. That's very good. As long as you know that you're going to put video over the top.
So this
Notice the
was
heads.
a challenge that my teacher made me do.
See how the head is jumping around? You'd never want to have that in your finished product. That's unprofessional. But this is a promotional video. We know we want to see a lot of pictures of the college. So she's not going to be up there very long. So we can go ahead and we can cut those ums out, and that's how you do it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unlock this music track now. And that's our third soundbite.
This was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
I'm going to unmute it because now we have to bring the level down the way we did with the first and second one. So again, we're going to do our keyframing. Command for Mac, Control for PC. You get that little square. Click once before she starts to talk. Click when she starts to talk. Click when she's done talking. And after, I can move that one over a little bit. Move these over a little bit so they go down. And then I can grab this center one, bring it down. About there. Have a listen.
So this was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put an end on here using just 2 keyframes. We're going to fade it out. We're going to give it a few seconds after she's done. We're going to put a few more shots. Right in there, we start to hear the drums. I'm going to hold down Command on my Mac, Control on your PC. I get the square. I put 1 and then 1 more, and then I grab this one and just bring it down to 0. And then it'll just fade out. There is another way to do that. I'll show it to you later. Whoop. Didn't want to do that. Undid it. What I wanted to do is move this over. It's doing something else for me, so I'll click on that. I'll move it over. Trying to get it a slower fade. There we go. Now I'm going to hit my / key to show you everything we've done so far. Because what we've done here is our A roll.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory. Here in Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen.
So this was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
We're almost there. I can see a few things that need to be tweaked, and you could do that later. I'm going to do one or two right now. I'm going to move this over so it doesn't come up so fast. I'm going to bring this level down even with that. And I think that's pretty good. Notice I was listening, and I hope you were too. I will sometimes close my eyes, but I was also watching the meters to make sure everything is peaking around -6, because that's most of my primary audio. We might have a few gunshots in here we're going to have to listen to, but for the most part, that's my primary audio, my A-roll. Showed you how to drop in these sound bites, showed you that we need a little placeholder for technical reasons. We dropped these two in. They only had one audio source. We made everything -6. We took this one and we changed the mic configuration to make sure only the lavalier mic, the primary mic that was used in the recording, is going to come through in the end. And we cut out a lot of uhs. So we prepped this all up and gotten it pretty close. We can always tweak audio a little more later, but I like to build my whole audio. And now I know that my piece is probably is going to end. We could change that too in this case, but it's about 37 seconds. So I think the original one I made was about 40. Why don't we go ahead and drag it out to 40 just to be. Here we go. Right, somewhere in there. And then we can just grab our fade here, bring it down. Let it fade out a little later, and we'll have a little more room for two more shots at the end. And I think we'll put a logo on the end too. Bring that down even. So that's our completed A-roll. So I have a different version of our A-roll here. I've prepped it up a little bit to prepare for our B-roll. I've made these tracks wider by just grabbing at the edges of the tracks here. So I'm going to prepare further for our B-roll by changing our targeting. I want all my B-roll, just like the drone shot here, to fall onto video 2. I want the audio that comes with that to fall onto audio 2. We have the music on 3. We have the primary audio from the sound bites on 1. We can go ahead and move the audio down here from the drone. There isn't really any audio. In fact, we want to make sure there isn't with the drone. So we'll bring that down to 0. Over here, just notice that I did cut out some of the uhs, just like we did for this young lady. I did that for Mr. Fred here, because I know we're going to cover this entire bite. We're going to see him here, and then we're just going to hear his voice here. Okay, so how do we put B-roll on? Again, our goal is to keep everything nice and neat, which is why I just explained all the organization we're going to do ahead of time. What we want to be very careful of is a flash of black like that. We want to make sure one shot butts against another. We can always change things later, but we don't want to leave black flashes. It's very easy to avoid that. Wherever my playhead is, if I use the up and down arrows, I'm hitting the down arrows. It will go to the edges of bites. I believe we have to target it here. It will go to the edges of bites. I'm sorry, edges of clips. So I'm using the down arrow. See how it goes to the edge of each clip? That's going to be important. You'll see why. I'm going to go ahead and go to the edge of the drone shot because we'll put in our next shot there. I'm going to take that targeting back off because we're going to stay on the edges of these up here. Okay, so here's all of our B-roll. And I went ahead and looked at just the kind of the shots I laid in the order I laid them in at. You can, of course, do them any way you want, but I'm going to try to mimic what I showed you a little earlier, a finished product of. So again, my playhead could be anywhere, but the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure it's on the edge of where the last clip that I'm going to edit next to. So I'm going to hit my down arrow. The playhead goes right to the edge. If I hit my left arrow, just to confirm this, if I hit my left instead of up and down, 1 frame back, I see the drone. One frame forward is the first frame of black. That's what we want to cover. So our second shot is going to be the bees, okay? This is where you can have some fun visually. So I'm going to double click and load the bees up here. I think we just started right as he pulls them up and we walk in. So I can change this later, of course, in several ways. But I'm going to start there with I for in. And I'm just going to put a little bit. It's not the same as picking sound bites because there's not an obvious out cue. So I like to just put a little bit and then I can trim it out later or back if I need to. So O, that's the area I've checked out. Now we want to do an overwrite. So period is the shortcut. And it lands. Well, I made a mistake. I want to make sure my targets are right, which I didn't have them quite right here. That's all right, because you see what happened. It cut the music. When the target's wrong, that's what happens. So I have to undo, change my target. Targeting track 2. Targeting video track 2. Now when we hit the period key, it goes where we want it. We could probably turn the sound down on that one too. I've got a little surprise for you later when it comes to audio. Okay, so this is what I mean. There's no flash. Let me just show you. This is what we wouldn't do. I will undo this. This is what you got to be careful about. If I had just randomly picked, I'll just drop it here, okay? Then I went up here and I hit period. You can see the gap, but sometimes it's very hard to see because it might be one frame. Watch. See that flash? We don't want that. I'm going to fix that by just bringing it over. But what you want to do is you want to use your up and down arrows down to the edge of the bee shot. Now, I can bring my bees over if I want. In fact, I'm going to blow this up using the plus key or the little slider down there. I can see a little better, and we're working in this area. So we want to bring this over to about 6 seconds is how I edited it before. So I'm going to trim it. I'm going to grab the end here. Notice the arrow gives me left or right. It points to the left, but it could also point to the right. I'm going to drag it out till about 6 seconds. I can see it a little more. I'm looking here. That's close enough. I'm looking here for my playhead location. So now I've got at least 2 shots here. Let's take a look. I'll lower that sound. We're going to have to control that sound. You can do it either before or after we get done with our A-roll. I'm sorry, our B-roll. All right. So now I want my next shot. So I'm going to put my play, again, move my playhead. It's in forward from where I want. Right to the edge of the B shot. Then we have a quick shot with these girls pointing to a ruler here. This one. I want just the action here. Let's see what's going to happen. We're looking for the action. You don't want to pick just any point. Let's watch this clip. Okay, action, guys. You hear me telling them action? That's what we want. Right there as she draws along the line. That's the action we want. So in, we'll do just a little bit. Come back a little bit using my left arrow, or you can grab the playhead up there in the source monitor. Out. Period. This is how we build it up. Now I'm going to grab this one and trim it back. And if I have something on called snapping, a very useful tool, it will snap. See how it gives a little indication of where the edge of the clip below it is? right here, that's what you want. Because we want to see, in this case, we're going to see Fred the moment he starts talking.
HCC Ybor Camp.
We'll bring our sound down a little bit. We're mostly relying on music for our audio here. So we've got 3 shots laid in.
HCC.
There's a quicker way to do this, but we could probably bring our B shot started a little sooner. There is a quicker way to do it. I'm not going to tell you how right now. It's too confusing. I just want to make that. Yeah, that's better. Maybe even a little more. So believe me, this is the long way to do this, but let's see where we start out. Yeah. And I'm going to bring this over to this one. Now we get a look at the B's. Yep. She moves the ruler. Now we're going to use our down arrow. I think we have to have this one on. These are the targets. These are the track targeting, which means it'll work. Now I go right down to the end. My up and down arrow wasn't working down here until I put this on. But with this on, that's still where it's going to land. A little confusing. You'll get used to it as you edit. All right, my next shot is going to be the police range where they're firing the pistols. Double click that. Start back here at the beginning. We want just before they fire.
Reload, cover scan, and holster. Watch it.
Took a little while. That's why you've got to watch your whole shot. We certainly wouldn't want all of this stuff where they're just standing there waiting for the targets to come up. We want to go right to the gunfire here. So in. Probably going to be enough. Out. Period. And we'll drag it back a little bit. Somewhere in that area, about 13 seconds is what we did before. So we could trim it back a few. You can see how much you're trimming there. I'm trimming 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it's exactly at 13, which is fine. No big deal. This is where you can have some fun with it. But this is how we lay it in. Now this time, of course, we want that sound of those guns. So let's hear it. Little loud. We'll bring it down some. Mix it with the music. That's fine. We're going to use our down arrow. Our back arrow, so to speak, to go back to that last clip. See how I do that each time so that I don't have a black flash, that it comes in at the next clip, at the end of this clip. Our next shot. Here's where we're going to do a little sequencing with the next couple of shots. We're going to have at least a wide shot and a medium shot. So we start with this, the live shot B-roll paralegal book. Let's look at this one. There's a rack focus here. Notice it starts on the books and focuses toward him. I think we want that. A little shaky. Yeah, that's not good. The photographer, it was me, probably did it again. That'll work. So the books are in focus, in. We go to him. He sweeps his hands. I like that. I'm going to keep that out. Period. And here. Now we're going to cover Fred here. So I'm going to consult my notes for how we did it before, but you can do it any way you want. I like the hand sweeping. I'm always looking at everything I come in and out on. I can live with that shakiness because of the way it goes from the books. There is a way to take that out. We can look at that in a more advanced lesson. I'm going to cheat a little bit and cut it off just a little bit. That'll work. So I did till 14:27 last time, so we'll bring it back a few frames. That's close enough, maybe in a little bit. Now I'm going to put my playhead again. I'm going to hit the down arrow. I'm right at the edge of that clip. Now I'm going to find a clip that is a similar shot in a way to be a sequence with this one. So just, again, make sure it's in the right place. So his hands were sweeping before, and he was looking at her. I look at all of that to pick my in. I like how he points. I'll use that.
Made a lot of money in the shrimp business, but you gave
Out. Period. Notice all my sound is down here. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I'm closer to him, so the mic's a little louder. We ran that shot until 15:11. So it's a good bit too long. We can do this. We can use snap, which is on here. Put our playhead at 15:11 and just bring it back. It'll snap right to that. See that? Now I've got a quick sequence. I've got a wide shot of the courtroom.
questions.
Here in Ybor City,
So this is how we're building it up. Our next shot, bring our playhead back. We have our own guys here. This time we'll go from the close-up to the wider shot. There's some action here we want to look at. We like the moving. Always go with the action if you can. Panning the camera, we'll go with that. In. Out. I've loaded our next shot here. Just picking in right where he comes into frame. Out. Period. We're building it up. I'm going to cut down the sound on these guys. I want to hear it, but I don't want it too loud. I can tweak that later. See how these two shots play together.
Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen, HCCY.
All right, good. I'll put my playhead where it needs to be. My next shot is the wider shot. We're again going to do a two-shot sequence, which is how we like to do a lot of things when we can. So I have these ladies at the whiteboard. Now, I've looked at this footage before, so I know what's happening, but you need to review your footage for action like pointing. Instead of just standing there looking, we want the action, pointing. I. Just let it go a little bit. O. Period. And we let that shot go to 25:05. Oh, we're pretty close. We'll just come over 2 frames to be absolutely accurate. We'll bring our playhead over. I'm going to blow this up just a little bit more using the slider. I want you to really see what we're doing here. We're laying all this stuff across the top as we go. And now, as I was saying before, we're going to cover this lady. But we want to see who's talking, and I believe we let her speak here. If I check my notes. Now after we put our 2-shot sequence in, we let her speak. So we'll put our playhead next to the whiteboard shot. We'll go with the close-up from the whiteboard shot, which is right here, and this matches really perfectly because she's also pointing here. Let's have a look.
Okay, go ahead.
In.
Yeah, this is good.
High velocity. Out. Period. We let that shot go until about 27:16. So we want to at least cover that lady talking. That's close enough. So see how I said this lady, we're going to let her talk, but we could cut out those uhs because we knew we were going to put pictures over them.
This was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful.
So we're going to turn down the sound of them talking. We like it, but we want it to be underneath. We're going to see who it is talking to us here by using this portion here and not covering that portion. So I'm going to use my playhead to go to the edge of that particular chunk where we cut out the uhs on the A roll. And then we're going to go with our sign shot. To start, we'd want to make sure that we don't let this edit go. It seems like nothing, but her mouth's open here, it's closed here. We don't really want that. What we know we're going to put a shot in there anyway, so we might as well cover this whole area. So to do that, we're going to make sure our playhead is right at the edge of this clip, the edge of this clip, the edge of this clip. And we're going to go with our sign shot, I believe. So here's our sign. Again, if you look here, there's nothing happening at the beginning here except the sign. It's pretty boring compared to if we have somebody walk into frame here on the right. That's what we want. Probably going to be too short for him to come into the frame, but we'll go ahead and we'll pick it there and see what happens. In, let him come in, let him walk a little bit, out, what, period. That's what. We'll turn down that just generic ambient noise from Ebor. And we let this one go to 34:15 according to my notes. So that is a good, no. 31:14, I'm sorry. 31:14 right there. So we leave our playhead there. Snapping is on. It snaps right to it. Boom. And we know the playhead is probably right. Just to be sure, I'm going to click off. I'm going to move my arrow back. Okay, one more shot, and then we'll put the poster on the end. And that's our columns shot. So again, I had somebody walk into frame here. You want that action. You want them coming right in. As soon as they come in point. Let it go a little bit, out point, period. I let this shot run to about 34.5, which it almost is. I'll bring it over a couple frames. I'll move my playhead over. I'll get my poster. Okay, now this is a still picture. So stills come in and they are default a certain length, which in this case appears to be 5 seconds. But I can make that any length I want down there. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit period and bring 5 seconds of it down. Notice it doesn't quite go to the end of the music way down here. I need it to go at least that far. It snaps to the end. See the little white bar indicating that if I drop it there, I've gone right to the edge of here. Guess what? We just B-rolled it. Let's have a look. We have a problem here. We'll talk about that in a minute. We do have a problem here, and we'll talk about that. That has to do with resolution. We have a couple of resolution problems we're going to talk about, but we do have all the black covered. So if I hit my / key, I can see everything. Let's have a quick look at everything.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory.
Turn it up a little bit for you.
Any questions?
Here in Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen, HCC-wide.
This was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
Okay. It is at least covered. So we'll start at the end here. We've got some real tweaking to do. I've got a surprise for you here. We'll start at the end here. Let me double click on this clip. We're going to get a little advanced here, but I want you to understand what's going on is this is a different resolution than the resolution we set this up for. And that can happen. It can be real small. It can not be everything that you think it's going to be. Not really a problem because we can double click, okay? If we go up here to Effects Controls, this is where we can affect our controls. So what we want to do is, in this case, we want to scale it back. There's a couple of ways to do this. If I close this or open this up, I'm going to do it real quick for you right now. I'm just going to grab right here. I'm going to click on the 100%. As I scale back, I can see my black. I don't really want to. Okay? I'm going to just get the words inspiration in there. And that's how I can move any clip. If I wanted to, blow this one up, I could do the same thing. I could just go to scale, blow that up. It would pixelate just like that, but that's just a little bit of advanced stuff because we want to make sure that those are fixed. We're going to have a couple more of those to fix in a minute because of the way some of this was shot. For instance, this one right here. Double click. Effects Controls. This was shot in a strange format, 4K format that was not quite the same aspect ratio. And I get this little bit of black. That's not a problem. It would be all right to leave in there, but I wanted to show you how you could simply fix that. You can also keyframe things just in this area, but we're not going to get into that. But if we grab that 100% and just blow it up till the black disappears. That's all we need. There's a couple others in here we'll be looking for, but I want to show you something. If you're wondering where the edges are and you really can't see them, you want to go here where it says Fit. If I click that and I go to a low percentage, like 25%, that's a little too low. If I go to 50%, I could see the edges. Let's try something a little easier for you to see, 75%. Let me see if I can find another shot. This shot, for instance, was also shot with the same camera. I could see the edges here. So we can fix that. There is a way to just apply this to all of them, but we won't get into that right now. Effects Controls. Now when I zoom in, I don't have to guess about whether I've covered it. You see, I can see the full edge, and I'm going to cover it. By the way, what's underneath it there? Her soundbite. So I have to be very careful. If I left it like that, I'd see that. So I just want to make sure that I don't see her underneath or any black on the top and bottom. I believe we have the rest of this is not like that, but I can look real quickly there. Depends on what cameras these were shot with. Some I may have fixed. That looks okay. Some of these we may have fixed in the past. But I wanted to show you that because if you're using different formats and stuff, you might see that. Then to go back to your regular view, we're going to hit Fit. So that is basically how to make sure our video gets on our piece, our B-roll, in a nice clean fashion with no flash frames. Okay, so we have our look at our whole PSA here. I'm going to use these handles over here on the right to kind of close down my clips a little bit there because we're going to do a little bit more on the audio. I didn't want you to think, although I said for you to build all your audio first, I don't want you to think that you cannot come back and sweeten your audio or make your audio, make your levels a little nicer, but I do have a little gimmick here for our bee shot. So let's go to our bee shot. I can kind of hear those bees, but I do have a little help for that. I have this bees sound effect here, which I've dropped in right here. Again, to drop that in, I would just cue it up here. I can set it in and out, and I hit period, and I've dropped that in. We drop that in on a third audio track.
HCC Ybor campus is like a living laboratory. Here in Ybor City, we have one of the most technical, diverse programs that I've seen, HCC-wide.
This was a challenge that my teacher made me do, and I am very grateful because this really helped me.
Okay, I just looked through it all with you, hopefully, there, and that's exactly what I want you to do whenever you finish any piece for us. It's just like proofreading a term paper. We want you to look at it, especially look for those black flashes that we talked about. I was looking over at the audio level there to make sure that it would play at roughly the same level. Remember, we mixed it at -6, meaning the peak of any audio wasn't going to be greater than -6. I want to point out to you that there are ways to do that with Premiere and make it automatically force everything to mix at -6. There are lots of different things that weren't covered in my little lesson here, and hopefully we can get to them in some advanced lessons. But on your own, you can look at help anytime you want. I just wanted to point that out to you. Adobe has great stuff. There's stuff on the internet. There's tutorials. Just wanted to point that out to you. Take advantage of that anytime. But we made a basic piece here, and we just looked through it. There's only one problem left. The only place it exists is here in Premiere Pro. Anyone I wanted to show this to, I'd have to drag Premiere Pro around with me on my computer. Obviously, that's not what we want. We want a movie file that is similar to some of these little clips that Camera's created. We want a self-contained file that we can do whatever we want with. Put it on YouTube, re-import it into an editing system, make other changes, whatever it might be. We'll play it directly off a computer, play it to a large crowd, play it into a server for broadcast. I've certainly done all of those things, but nothing happens until we do what's called export. We need to get a movie file. First thing you want to be aware of is make sure you're clicked on the right window that you want to export. So obviously we want to export and make sure you're on the right timeline. Obviously you want to export from this timeline. Again, we've looked at it. It looks pretty good. I might make a few more tweaks. There are certainly some dissolves type things I would use, but again, I'm just trying to get you to do a basic error-free edit here. So we're ready to export. As long as we have the right sequence clicked, we go up here to File, Export. We want to export media. I often use the shortcut. There it is. Command, in case of a Mac, it would be Control in a PC, M for export media. When I click on that, I'm going to get a dialog box. And this is a relatively complicated box here, so let's start up here on the right at the top. I want you to click Match Sequence Settings in almost all cases. This will simply match as close as possible the technical parameters that we set up when we set up the sequence. That's going to cause a lot less problems for you when you're first starting out. After you get going, you may want to explore some of this, where you can make things with the resolution, the frame rate, things like sample rate, whatever you want them to be. But for now, and the easiest way when you're using Premiere and first starting is to simply click that button, Match Sequence Settings. It will automatically match it. It may be, depending on the sequence, it may come out to be .mov. This is .mpeg. Both formats, that's a format, are going to work. One thing to look for with an Adobe program like Premiere would be this, output name. Okay, that would appear to be just the name. And by the way, I've changed the name of this program in case you're wondering from what we set up at the beginning. It's all still the same PSA here. So this is the name that's with the sequence down here. And I can change that, and that's part of the function, but also if I click on it, I'm going to be able to route it. So what we want to do is you want to go to, and let's take a look at this here. I'm already here, but this is your master folder. Your master folder. We made a master folder, Premiere Training Summer 2020. What we want to do now is make a folder for just the things we're going to export. I always found that to be good practice. So right here, new folder, export, and this is within my master folder. Very important because I can find it easily. Create. Now we hit save, and we haven't done anything yet. One more thing to check before we export is this area over here, the source range. If you don't have any ins and outs set, sequence into out will work. If you do, it's only going to export that. By the way, make sure you've clicked on your sequence down here. Whatever box you've clicked on is what it's going to try to export. So we want to have this, we can either have sequence in and out, we can have the entire sequence, which works for this. So there are different things, different ways you can export. You can export the work area, which is what this blue line represents if you want to mark a work area. But all that's pretty advanced, so no ins and outs right now. Sequence in and out would work. Entire sequence, usually what you want to do. So that's fine. Just be aware of that. If it doesn't export exactly like you're wondering, that could be a sticking point. Now we're all set up. We've matched the sequence setting. We routed it. I did not rename this, but you could. And when we click export, boom, it's going to export. This is what we want. This is my MPEG. When I click on that, depending on what your media player does, it's going to play your piece. And you're probably going to find that, although this is low res and not the best quality, that the quality will look better to you than it did when you're editing. So just a quick look, we know what this is.
HCC eBoard campus is like a living laboratory.
So there's your piece. Now you can put this on YouTube, send it to your professor, whatever the case may be, just so we're clear. We'll go back to Premiere here because we're going to wrap up this lesson. I hope that you figured out and followed along and made a PSA like this with me. Yes, there are many more things we can do, but I want you to get the basics down. What I recommend is make it happen from start to finish once, clear it out, or start a whole new folder, whatever you got to do every step again. Do it 2-3 times, and you will begin to really get the hang of it, and you won't have to worry so much about picking shots and stuff. I've done some of that for you over here. So I hope you found this helpful, and good luck with the editing.